morning, everybody. So great to be here. I was talking to my wife the other day over a meal about a few of the things I wanted to say today on does truth still matter or truth still matters. And so I told her a couple of things. She goes, wow, that is heady. So I apologize, all you Raider fans in advance. Hang in there. Oxford University is the oldest English-speaking university in the world. There's a little debate about what year it started, but most say around 1096. So it's over 900 years old. You know, what was going on in California 900 years ago? Who knows what was going on? California wasn't even California. And it's an amazing place. Jerry and I spent a whole day there a couple years ago. And they put out what is called the Oxford Dictionary of the English Language. It is the go-to authority, has been for over 100 years, the go-to authority on the English language, the Oxford Dictionary. And what they've done for the last, 25 years or so, I think, is every year the Oxford Dictionary comes out with a word of the year. And it's usually a newer word that's kind of taken culture by storm and its use has gone way up. It's usually a word that wasn't even around a few years ago. So every year they come up with this, what they call word of the year. So for instance, in 2013, the word of the year was selfie. 15 years ago, no one would even know what you're talking about. In the next year, in 2014, it was the word vape. I remember the first time I heard that word, I'm thinking, what? What in the world is vape? In 2015, for the first time in their history, it wasn't a word. It was an emoji. Guess which one? It was a happy face with tears of joy. But in 2016, their word of the year, a word that has taken the culture by storm, it was a hyphenated word. And the word was this word, post-truth. What does that mean? Take a look at the screen. Here's what their definition of post-truth, an adjective defined as relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. That's our culture. Don't confuse me with the facts. We human beings have an amazing ability to not let the facts get in the way of what we believe. And what it's saying about our culture is we're at that place, that's our culture where objective facts don't really matter that much. It's what I feel and it's what I want to believe. And that's where our culture is, that objective truth really doesn't matter. A few years ago, late night talk show host, comedian Stephen Colbert coined a new word of his own. It was truthiness. And here's what he said. Look at this. This is what he said. Truthiness is sort of what you want to be true as opposed to what the facts support. Truthiness is a truth larger than the facts that would comprise it. If you care about the facts, which you don't if you care about truthiness. You see, what matters in our culture today is what you feel to be true. Even if it's not necessarily true. Facts don't matter. What matters is how you feel, for you as an individual are the final judge of truth. Does truth still matter? Can something be your truth but not my truth? Are there objective truths, absolute truths that are across the board, that are true for everyone in every place and every time? Do those even exist? The Old Testament prophet Isaiah said this, Isaiah 59, look at these words. Isaiah said, truth stumbles in the streets. Wow. Sure does today. There are 4 biographies of Jesus in the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They record some of the things, not most, because John says we couldn't even write down most, but they record some of the things that Jesus said. What is the phrase that those 4 biographies put on the lips of Jesus more than any other phrase he ever spoke? Go ahead, tell your neighbor, what do you think is the most common repeated phrase of Jesus Christ in the biographies of the New Testament? You got it? It's this one right here. He said, I tell you the what? Truth. Almost 70 times. Jesus said, I tell you the truth. Does truth still matter? It mattered to Jesus. See if you can finish this sentence. You will know the truth, and the truth will... Yeah. Most people think Martin Luther King said that. It was Jesus. And he said truth is going to have this liberating quality in your life. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. In John chapter 8, Jesus was on trial before the Roman governor Pilate. Night before he's crucified. And he's having this discussion with Pilate, the Roman governor, and Pilate's trying to figure all this stuff out. And Jesus tells Pilate these words. Look at this verse, John 18. In fact, he's talking to this Roman governor. The reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me. Does truth matter to Jesus? Jesus says, that's the reason I came. I was born. I came to this world, Jesus says. Why? To testify to the truth. And if you know that story, Pilate looked at Jesus when he said that. He said, what is truth? Apparently, he didn't stick around for the answer. Now, the definition that we saw of post-truth, Oxford Dictionary said, objective facts are less influential than our feelings and our beliefs and what we want to be true. So what are objective truths and what are subjective truths, and where does all that come in? And let me just talk about that for a moment. How do you differentiate between something that's an objective truth or something that's a subjective truth? And how do they differ? So let's look at them. Here's a definition. Look at these words. Objective truth is truth based on external realities, not by the perception of the person. It's out there. Objective truth, the truth resides in the object, not in the subject. So your opinion can't change it. If I said to you, this shirt is blue, that's an objective truth claim. Your preference doesn't matter. If you say, well, I prefer yellow shirts, it's still a blue shirt. This side sees it blue. This side sees it as blue. If it's objective truth, it's true for everyone, or it's not true for everyone. It can't be true for this side and not true for this side. It's a blue shirt. Your opinion, your preference, my opinion doesn't really matter. If you say, well, I prefer another color shirt, that's great. But the objective fact is it's a blue shirt. The truth resides in the object, not in the subject. Here's subjective truth. Subjective truth is based on internal perception, not on external realities. So subjective truth is a preference, a matter of opinion or personal taste. You see, objective truth can be true or false. Subjective truth really isn't a true or false issue. So let's test it out, all right? Let me give you a couple phrases. You tell me if this is objective or subjective. So here's the first one. Mint chocolate chip ice cream is the best flavor of ice cream. Is that objective or subjective? Yeah, it's subjective. That's not a true or false statement. It's a personal preference. It's a matter of opinion that mint chocolate chip ice cream is the best kind. Here's another one. Look at this one. Mint chocolate chip ice cream is medicine that helps people control cholesterol. You wish, don't you? Is that subjective or objective? That is objective. Because you're talking about a reality in the object. It resides in the object, that ice cream. Objective doesn't mean it's necessarily true. It can be true or false. That's an objective claim, even though it's hogwash. It's an objective claim. Here's another one. 2 + 2 = 4. Is that subjective or objective? That's an objective truth claim. Your opinion doesn't matter, doesn't change it. You can say, I wish it was 5. But it's true for everyone in all places. That's true in Denmark, it's true in Japan, it's true in the United States. So here's another one. Tell me, is this objective or subjective? Math is the most exciting subject. First of all, how many of you agree with that? All right, there's several. We have therapists out here. That's a subjective statement. All right, here's another one. God exists. Is that objective or subjective? That is an objective truth claim. It rests in the object. In this case, it's God. And it's either true or false. I can't alter it. A good test is an objective. Will my opinion change it? My opinion won't change it. God either exists or God does not exist. My opinion won't make it so or not so. My belief won't make it so. Nothing ever became true because someone believed it. Nothing ever became false because someone didn't believe it. Your beliefs and your opinions don't change an objective truth. Here's another one. Tell me this one. Jesus is the only way to God. Many of you just sang those words in one of our songs. Objective or subjective? Can your opinion change this? No. It's either true or it's false. Saying it's an objective truth claim doesn't say necessarily everyone says, okay, then it's true. It's true or false. In one of the most radical claims of the New Testament, Jesus said this, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me. That claim of Jesus is either true or false. It's either true for everyone or it's not true for everyone. Either he is the truth for all or he is the truth for none. He can't be truth for some. And we normally, when we think of truth as a statement or a proposition, and oftentimes it is. But that statement of Jesus, the Christian faith says truth is more than a proposition, truth is a person. Jesus said, I am the truth. And the Christian faith rests on one objective historical truth. And we sang about this, and Philip was talking about this too. It rests on one bedrock truth, and that's this, that Jesus Christ died on a cross. His heart stopped beating. His lungs stopped breathing. His organs shut down. He died. But 3 days later, he came out. And his heart was beating. And his lungs were breathing. And his organs were functioning. And he was fully alive again. And your opinion about that objective truth isn't going to change it. It doesn't matter how many people in the world believe in objective truth or don't believe it. It doesn't matter if there are only 10 people in the world who believe that Jesus really came back from the dead. That doesn't change it because objective truth isn't up for a majority vote. It doesn't depend on how many people think it's true or how many people think it's false. It's the objective truth of the resurrection. Here's what Paul says, 1 Corinthians 15:17. And if Christ has not been raised, then your faith is useless. Paul says it all hangs right here, folks. If this objective truth claim did not happen, if Jesus was not dead and did not come back out fully alive, then discard your faith. Throw it out. Again, a majority vote doesn't determine whether that's true or not. There was a time in our world when the majority of people thought the world was flat. Did that make it true? No. And how about in the area of morality? When we talk about truth claims, we talk about morality. Are there objective moral truth claims? George Barna, the Barna Group, did a poll in 2015, and they said this statement. Look at this statement. This is what they said. Every culture must determine what is acceptable morality for its people. 65%, almost 2/3 of American adults said, yeah, I agree. So basically, this is called cultural relativism. And what they're saying is, most people are saying morals, ethics, right and wrong, good and bad. That differs with every culture. Because it's just like language. Cultures have different languages, so they have different morals. So we really don't have moral absolutes across the board. They're determined by every culture. And I have a big problem with that. If that is the case, then how could you condemn Hitler if the majority of Germans were behind him in the 1930s? And if culture decides what's good, what if the majority of southern states in 1850 felt that race-based slavery was morally good? Did it make it so? No. Here's another question they asked on that same survey. Look at this one. Whatever is right for your life or what works best for you is the only truth you can know. 57% of adults agree. 3/4 of millennials said, I'm absolutely in. The only truth you can know is what's in you. You're the judge. You decide what's true. It's all inside here. You decide what's good and bad morally. Millennials, 3/4 of millennials, there's some debate, but mainly people who are right now between 18 and 38. And they said, millennials say, that's true. If that is true, if it's all up to you, there are no moral truths out there, only subjective preferences. If that is true, how are you ever going to say someone's moral choices are wrong? You can't, because I'm the final judge. It's what works for me. And if I decide this is good or that's bad or whatever, it's just an individual thing. And if that's the case, folks, the whole concept of sin in the Bible disappears. I mean, how are you ever going to call something sinful? It may not be sinful to you if you believe. You're the judge of what's true and what's false. Here's what it says in the New Testament. Look at these words. Everyone who sins is breaking God's law. For all sin is contrary to the law of God, and you know that Jesus came to take away our sins. Look at those words. Apparently there is a law of God that's good for all people in all cultures in all times, because God is not bound by culture. God is not bound by time. God is not bound by a place geographically. He is the only one. I can't. I'm bound by where I grew up. I'm bound by all my circumstances. So are you, but God is not. And he can make absolute moral truths for all people, for all time, in every place. And John writes that sin is breaking God's law. If there is no sin, why did Jesus come on a rescue mission? C.S. Lewis said this in his classic book, Mere Christianity. Look at these words. It is after you have realized that there is a real moral law and a power behind the law, and that you have broken that law and put yourself wrong with that power. It is after all this and not a moment sooner that Christianity begins to talk. Let me illustrate it for you like this. Back in the 1970s, when I was in college, I'm old. There was a well-known Christian philosopher / theologian named Francis Schaeffer. He attracted a lot of the Jesus culture hippie things that were going on in my day. But he set up a little school over in Switzerland. But Francis Schaeffer, this theologian, philosopher, Christian man, had the gift of prophecy, really. Because he said, here's what we've done. He said, you can picture it like this. Here's our culture. And he says, it's like a 2-story house. This is what we've done in our culture. It's like a 2-story house. And in the bottom floor are all the objective truths. And down here are all the things that are verifiable. And this is your public world. And this is your Monday through Friday world. And this is science. And this is reason. And everything down there is on all of us. I mean, we're all under this. It affects everyone because it's verifiable, it's objective, it's your Monday through Friday public world. That's where it's at. And then in the upper floor, he said, this is the subjective. This is the area, this is what our culture says. This is the area of religion. This is the area of morals. This is all about personal preference and choices. It's not obligatory for everybody. This is the world of feelings. And up here, religion isn't a truth you submit to. It's a personal preference that you choose. And Schaeffer said, so what we've done in our culture, people in our culture can say, well, I'm not against religion. All they say is, but keep it where it belongs. Push it to that upper floor, because down here, this is clear thinking. Up here is wishful thinking. And so we're all for your religion. Just keep it, private. Down below in the bottom story is the public world, but up here is private. So have your Christianity, have your religion, but that's your private truth. It's not your public truth down here. And so what they say is just have your, keep it, but keep it up where it belongs. And when Francis Schaeffer wrote this in the 1970s, how much truer? This gap has just yawned into a yawning chasm in our culture. People say, oh, it's okay to have your beliefs, but just don't bring it where it really matters. This is the area that matters. This is the area of wishful thinking. This is objective, that's subjective. This is incumbent on everybody. This is just whatever preference, whether it's your morals or your religion, just whatever flavor you like. And that's what our culture has said, is just keep that wall there. So we don't have to really condemn religion. We can say, oh, we respect religion, but just keep it where it belongs. Peter Berger, renowned sociologist, was talking about this, and he said the upper story has been reduced to an innocuous play area where it won't upset any apple carts in the real world. Let me just say a couple things about this. If you think that Jesus Christ is just a preference, he's one among many religious flavors, it doesn't matter what flavor you choose, how compelled are you going to be to share Jesus Christ with anybody? And if you think it's private, let me say this. When you come to Christ and make a decision to follow him, it's personal, but it's not private. Personal, you have to do it. No one can do it for you. Your spouse can't make you a Christ follower. Your kids can't make you a Christ follower. You have to decide. It's a very personal choice, but it is not at all a private choice. Because God meant our faith, our Christianity, to infect our entire world. We don't leave our faith at home tomorrow morning. The truth of Christianity is made to hit every area of life, not just our weekend world. So I want to close with just this quickly. There is one of the most fascinating encounters of Christianity with culture in the first century in the New Testament. It's just a fascinating account, and it's found in Acts chapter 17. The Apostle Paul, next to Jesus Christ, he's the most dominant figure of the New Testament. The Apostle Paul goes to the city of Athens. Athens, Greece, was the intellectual capital of the world in that day. Rome may have been the political capital, but Athens was the intellectual center. It was the city of Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and other prominent philosophers. It was seen as the place to be intellectually. And so here's what it says, Acts 17, verse 16. Look at this. While Paul, he's waiting for his companions to catch up with them, he's traveling with. While Paul was waiting for them, he decided to do a little tour. He was deeply troubled. It would be hard to think of a more hostile, less receptive, more scornful audience than Paul was going to address right there. And then Luke, the one recording these events, adds this little parenthetical statement, verse 21. It should be explained that all the Athenians, as well as the foreigners in Athens, seemed to spend all their time discussing latest ideas. See, they were a lot like Americans. They wanted to keep all their spiritual options open. And they liked the latest fads and trends. Go on. So Paul, standing before the Areopagus, addressed them as follows: Men of Athens, I noticed you are very religious in every way. As I was walking along, I saw many of your shrines, and one of your altars had this inscription on it: to an unknown God. This God whom you worship without knowing is the one I'm telling you about. You see, they wanted to cover all their bases spiritually, so they had all these idols to all the different gods and goddesses of the Greek pantheon, but just in case they missed one, they had idols to an unknown God. Didn't want to leave anybody out. So Paul says, you know that unknown God? I'm going to tell you about him. And he has searched this God in 5 ways. Here's what he says. Number 1, this unknown God is creator of the universe. Look what Paul says. He is the God who made the world and everything in it. Since he is Lord of heaven and earth, he doesn't live in man-made temples. He said, you philosophers, we're not here by chance. Someone created everything and everyone. And he can't live in temples. He may have pointed to the Parthenon. You can still see the ruins of the Parthenon today, a magnificent building. It was already 400 years old when Paul visited Athens. And he may have said, you know that Parthenon right over? You can't put God in that. So God's the creator. Number 2, he's the sustainer of life. Look what Paul says. He is not served by human hands as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. Paul says, not only did God create everything, he is involved with stuff. The gods are not far off like some of you think and disinterested and could care less. We depend on God. He does not depend on us. We sing that song here sometimes, you give life. It's your breath in our lungs. And Paul quotes 2 of their philosophers, poets. He gives them their own people. They must be realizing this isn't an uneducated seed picker. Paul knew their culture, could talk on their terms, could speak their language, could quote their sources. 3rd, Paul says this, he's the ruler of all nations. From one man he made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from any one of us. He says, God's here. He developed all of us from one man. Folks, there's no room for racism. We're all from the same DNA. 4th, he says this, he's the father of all humans. Therefore, since we are God's offspring, we should not think that the divine being is like gold or silver or stone, an image made by human design and skill. Paul's just saying, kids look like their parents. And if God's our father, how in the world would, look at us, we're living, we're breathing, we're relationship oriented. That's God. He's not a rock, he's not a stone, he's not metal. And 5th thing he said is this, he will judge the world. God overlooked people's ignorance about these things in earlier times. Paul's telling these 30 intellectual men, you're lucky God didn't bring the hammer down yet. But now he commands everyone, everywhere, that pretty much takes everybody in, to repent of their sins and turn to him, for he has set a day for judging the world with justice by the man he has appointed. Here it comes again, and prove to everyone who this is by what? Raising him from the dead. History is not cyclical, Paul tells these men. It's going somewhere. It's headed towards something. And God has been patient. But this judgment, he says, is going to be universal, everyone, everywhere. No one's going to get a pass. And it's going to be a judgment with justice. There will be no miscarriage of justice on that day. No one's going to be able to bribe their way through. There's not going to be any backroom deals going on. And it is definite. He says a day has been set. And Paul says, you know what it's based on? That objective truth claim that Jesus died and he rose from the dead. Then look what happened. When they heard Paul speak about the resurrection of the dead, he laughed. Some laughed in contempt. Others said, we want to hear more about this later. That ended Paul's discussion with them, but some joined him and became believers. Among them was Dionysius, a member of the Areopagus, a woman named Damaris, and others with them. Some think Paul wasn't very successful in Athens. One of those 30 most intellectual men in the world became a Christian. How did that impact the city of Athens? How did that impact the church there? And he said some others. You know, there were 3 responses that day to Paul's message. And they're the same 3 responses of people today. It says some of them mocked and jeered. And some people do that to the message of Christ today. It said others said, well, this is interesting. We'll hear more about it later. They procrastinated. It's a dangerous thing to do. God has set a day, Paul says. We don't know when that is. But some said, yeah, I'm busy. Life's going on. I got to take my kids to the orthodontist this week. I got a lot of things going on, so don't bother. I'll talk about it later. Dangerous. And some accepted the message. So where are you? You say, nah, I'm rejecting it out of hand. It's not true. Or you're saying, you know, it's kind of interesting, but I got a lot going on. I mean, I got stuff down here that's pretty important. Or today could be the day you say, yeah, I want to follow Christ. I'll close with this story, supposedly from the U.S. Navy. The battleship had been assigned to sea for some rather complicated maneuvers, and it was dark and foggy. Visibility was extremely poor, so the captain stationed lookouts all over the ship, assigned them places. Sure enough, one of the lookouts spotted a light in the distance and told the captain, and they quickly took coordinates and realized they're on a head-on collision with each other if somebody doesn't change course. So the captain told the signalman, signal that ship and advise them to change course 20 degrees. And back came a signal, advisable for you to change course 20 degrees. The captain decided to pull rank, and he told the signalman, signal, I'm a captain, change your course 20 degrees. The signal came back, I'm a seaman second class. You better change your course 20 degrees. Well, now the captain is just mad. And he spits out to the signalman, just using raw power. He says, send, I'm a battleship, change your course 20 degrees. And back came the signal, I'm a lighthouse, do what you want. Friends, Jesus Christ is not just another ship. He is the light. And any life course adjustment you make because of him is highly advisable. He is the truth. Does truth still matter? Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Let's stand for prayer.